Coffee. Yes, coffee. That's better. Coffee originated in Ethiopia and eventually ended up back in Africa almost 600 years later, so apparently coffee wasn't always fast. Yes, that coffee. The coffee that caused the Haitian uprising in 1791, the uprising that ended slavery in Haiti and founded the Haitian Republic. Also, the one that Pat Robertson said caused the massive earthquake that killed thousands of people and destroyed millions of dollars in property. That uprising. All because of coffee. Of course, the Haitian slave conditions, probably had a lot to do with it. Of course, probably being a slave had more to do with it. Imagine that. Imagine that, though. Just imagine 1 minute, you're a Haitian slave. And the next minute, of course, it's a minute 13 years later in 1804, you're considered a Haitian citizen. That had to feel pretty damn good, all because of coffee. Get the slaves hopped up on coffee and they revolt. Don't give your slaves coffee, apparently. That's the lesson we learned from this. Slavery increased with the expansion of coffee production. Every country that got coffee early on, Brazil, other South American countries, Cuba, Haiti, any place where coffee was brought into the country, slavery increased. Or maybe not so much in Mexico, but you get the point. You bring in coffee, you got to have slaves to work the coffee plantations. Most coffee is grown in developing third world countries and is attributed to child labor. So you got little kids. And I can understand that because coffee, they're not trees, they're bushes. And kids can just reach out and pick. You don't have to bend over. You don't have to reach up. You can just reach out if you're a kid. Between 1511 and 1886, over 1 million slaves were imported from Africa to Cuba in order to cultivate their crops. And although production and selling of sugar in the country began slaveholding, the presence of coffee played an equally important role in establishing slavery in Cuba. When it first reached Cuba, well, the farmers welcomed it. I mean, think about this. You needed less land for your coffee plantation, and you didn't need as much machinery. And slaveholding during this time in Cuba was enforced by prison-like conditions, creating unrest and inevitable rebellions against the wealthy owners who enslaved them. So coffee causes a lot of uprising, and I said it before and I'll say it again. Don't give your slaves coffee. All right. Keep that in mind. Coffee production in Cuba did not last as long as in other countries due to competition with, Brazilian coffee. Coffee entered the Caribbean in the early 18th century and flourished. Its cultivation has been connected with slave trade. Slave labor, well, yeah, if you're going to trade slaves, you're probably going to want to put them to work. Isn't coffee fun? But to be fair, it's not really like that today. And I'm happy because I love coffee. I couldn't stand to live in a country where people drink mainly tea. I hate tea. I would have thrown that shit into the harbor without anything to protest. And I can imagine the founding fathers go down to the coffee house. They sit down, they drink a bunch of coffee, they get all hopped up on caffeine, they run, let's go terrorize the harbor, and they run out to the harbor, they grab the tea and they whip it in. They throw the British tea into the harbor. Here's the irony of it. Those Americans, those founding fathers, didn't consider themselves Americans. They considered themselves British, and they threw their own friggin' tea into the harbor. They couldn't understand why they were paying more taxes than their counterparts back in England. It's because King George was a wacko. Shh, don't tell anybody. And growing up, you heard all the crap. It'll stunt your growth. It'll turn you brown. Monkeys will fly out your butt whistling the 1812 overture. Well, okay, maybe not that last one, but you get the point. It all ties into your younger life. If you were denied something when you were younger, if it was forbidden, more than likely the first chance you got to get it, you jumped on it like a lion on a gazelle. And in my case, it was a bit different. My parents made me drink coffee. Doctor's orders. I was diagnosed as being hyperactive, if you can imagine that. And the thought was that the coffee would calm me down. Well, it did. It also turned me into a raving coffee lunatic. 3 pots a day, raving coffee lunatic when I got older. When most parents were yelling about drinking too much alcohol, mine were yelling at me about drinking too much coffee. They never knew. They never knew, and I guess it's for the best they didn't know. About the pound of weed I tried to smoke one night. I got really hungry. I got really sleepy. And I woke up covered in most of the pound, smelling like wet grass. I was green and fuzzy, and it's a wonder I didn't strangle myself on the black plastic bag that it was in. Somehow they never knew, though. And if they did know, they never let me know that they knew. But that's not coffee, is it? No, coffee is more awesome than that. But that's my opinion. I can remember back in Virginia, oh, around 1988, when I was living down there, they tried to pass a law that stated you could be charged driving under the influence if you drank more than 1 cup of coffee. What were they afraid of? That you would drink so much coffee that you would abandon your car on the busy streets and run to work? I once ate a handful of espresso beans, and I'll tell you, I felt like running the 20-some miles to the electric company to wait for my friends who had picked me up from work and had to go there to pay their electric bill. Yeah, I felt like running there and waiting for them. And there's so many different types of coffee, from your simple cup of joe to espressos, lattes, mochas, mochachinos. You can get black. You can get black with sugar, which is another slavery crop, by the way. You can get it with cream. You can get it with cream and sugar, half calf, decaf, extra calf. It staggers the mind. It comes in candies. You got chocolate covered. You got white chocolate covered. You got toffees. You got ice creams, coffee ice creams. It's just everywhere. And it's good for you in moderation. Something I know little about when it comes to coffee. Well, as always, I bid you freshening winds and billowing sails. Go, go on, fuck off.